You ever have one of those weeks where everything just comes at you at once? I'm not talking about busy. I'm talking about that feeling when the ground underneath you starts to shift. Maybe it's a relationship that's falling apart. Maybe it's money getting tight. Maybe it's just the weight of it all. And you look around and wonder, when did I become this fragile? Because that's the word, isn't it? Fragile. And if you're like most men, you've been told your whole life that you're not supposed to be fragile. You're supposed to be solid, strong, the guy who handles it, the guy who doesn't crack. But here's the truth, nobody tells you. Life will hit you hard, and if you're standing on weak ground, you're going down. Not because you're weak, but because you never learned how to build a foundation that can actually take the hits.
This isn't about toughening up. It's not about manning up or pretending you don't feel anything. That's just another way to crumble, slowly, from the inside out. What I'm talking about is something different, something real. I call it emotional concrete. It's the ability to stay solid when everything around you is shaking. It's knowing how to take a punch without losing yourself. It's about building something inside you that can bear weight, that can weather storms, that doesn't collapse the first time life gets heavy. And here's the thing, nobody's born with this. It's not genetic, it's not luck. It's built, poured, reinforced, one choice at a time. I've been there, standing in the wreckage of my own life, wondering how I let it get so bad, wondering why I couldn't just handle it like I thought I was supposed to. And I learned the hard way that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about building something strong enough that when life comes for you, and it will, you don't shatter. You bend, you absorb, you hold. That's what we're going to talk about in this series. Not surface-level advice, not motivational fluff, but the real work, the deep work of building emotional concrete, the kind of foundation that lets you stand firm when everything else is falling apart. Because you deserve that. You deserve to feel solid, not perfect, not invincible, just solid. And if you're tired of feeling like you're one bad day away from collapsing, if you're looking for something real, something that actually works, then stay with me. Subscribe if this speaks to you, because we're going deep and I want you here for all of it. Let's build something that lasts. So let's talk about why this is so hard. Why is it that so many good men, solid men, men who work hard, who try to do right, why do they fall apart when life gets heavy? It's not because they're weak. It's because they were never taught how to be strong. Not really. Here's what I mean. From the time you're a kid, you're given two messages, and they're both poison. The first message is, be tough, don't cry, don't show weakness. So you learn to bury it. You learn to shove your feelings down so deep that you forget they're even there. And that works for a while. Until one day, something cracks, and everything you buried comes flooding out. And you're not ready, because you never learned how to actually deal with it. The second message is, just be yourself. Feel your feelings. It's okay to be vulnerable. Which sounds great, except nobody teaches you what to do with those feelings. So you end up drowning in them. You become so open, so raw, that every little thing cuts you. And that's not strength either. That's just exposure. Both paths lead to the same place, instability. You're either a dam that's about to burst or a river with no banks. Either way, you're not solid. And here's the kicker. The world needs you to be solid. Your family needs it. Your kids need it. You need it. But nobody ever showed you how to build that. So you fake it. You put on the mask. You act like you've got it together. And inside, you're barely holding on. I see it all the time. Men who look strong on the outside, good jobs, good families, doing all the right things, but one bad month, one betrayal, one loss, and they collapse. Not because they're failures, but because they built their lives on sand. And listen, I'm not blaming you. This isn't your fault. You were handed a bad blueprint. You were told that strength meant never bending, or you were told that vulnerability meant letting everything in. But nobody taught you how to build a structure that could actually hold weight. That's what emotional concrete is. It's not denial, it's not suppression, and it's not letting every wave knock you over either. It's building something inside you that's strong enough to absorb impact, flexible enough not to shatter, and grounded enough to stay standing. And the good news? It's learnable. You weren't born broken, you were just never given the tools. But we're going to fix that, starting now. There's this image in our heads, this idea of what a strong man looks like. He doesn't get rattled, he doesn't feel fear. He takes every hit and just keeps moving forward like a machine. Nothing touches him, nothing breaks him. You know this guy. You've seen him in movies, read about him in books. Maybe you even tried to be him. And here's the problem. That man doesn't exist. He's a myth, a fantasy. And chasing that version of strength will destroy you. Because the unshakable man isn't strong, he's numb. And there's a difference. Strength is feeling the hit and staying standing. Numbness is pretending you never got hit at all. And eventually, that catches up to you. I used to think I had to be that guy, the one who never flinched, the one who never showed pain. I thought that was what it meant to be a man. And so I buried everything, every hurt, every disappointment, every moment of doubt. I locked it all away and told myself I was being strong. But you know what happened? I became hollow, empty. I wasn't strong. I was just gone. I was walking through life like a ghost. And when something real came along, something I couldn't ignore, I had no idea how to handle it. Because I'd spent so long pretending I didn't feel anything that I forgot how to actually process what I felt. That's not strength. That's suicide in slow motion. And on the other side, you've got the guy who's so in touch with his feelings that every little thing knocks him down. Every criticism is a crisis. Every setback feels like the end. He's not building anything. He's just reacting all the time. Both of these men are weak. Not because they feel or don't feel, but because they have no structure, no foundation. They're either a concrete block with no flexibility or a pile of sand with no form. What you need is something in between. Something that can take a hit without breaking. Something that can feel without collapsing. That's the myth we have to kill. The myth that strength means being untouchable. Because it doesn't. Real strength is being touchable, but not breakable. It's being able to feel the weight of life and carry it anyway. You don't have to be unshakable, you just have to be solid. There's a difference. And that's what we're building here. Not invincibility, just durability. The kind of strength that lasts. Let's keep going. All right, let's get specific. What is emotional concrete? What does it actually mean? And how do you know if you have it? Think about real concrete for a second. You know how it's made? It's not just one thing, it's a mix. You've got cement, water, sand, and gravel. Each ingredient has a purpose. The cement binds, the water activates, the sand fills the gaps, the gravel gives it strength. And when you mix them right, you get something that can hold up buildings, roads, bridges, structures that last for decades. But if you mess up the mix, if you use too much water or not enough gravel, it crumbles, it cracks, it doesn't hold. Your emotions are the same way. Emotional concrete is the ability to mix your feelings, your thoughts, your actions, and your values into something that holds you steady. It's not about eliminating emotion, it's about integrating it, using it as part of the structure, not letting it become the whole thing. Here's what it looks like in practice. When life hits you, and it will, you feel it. You don't deny it. You don't pretend it doesn't hurt. But you also don't let it own you. You acknowledge the pain, you process it, and then you decide what to do next. Not from a place of reaction, but from a place of principle. That's the difference. Emotional concrete gives you the ability to feel without being ruled by what you feel. You lose your job? You feel the fear, the anger, the disappointment. But you don't spiral, you don't collapse. You sit with it, you let it move through you, and then you start rebuilding. Because your foundation is still there. The hit didn't take you out. Someone betrays you, you feel the hurt, the rage, the disbelief. But you don't become consumed by it. You don't let bitterness rot you from the inside. You process it, you learn from it, and you move forward. Because you're built on something deeper than that one relationship. See, emotional concrete isn't about being hard. It's about being solid. There's a difference. Hard breaks, solid bends and holds. And the thing is, this doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day and have it. You build it, one layer at a time, one decision at a time, one moment of choosing stability over chaos. It's a practice, a discipline, a way of living. And it starts with understanding that emotions aren't your enemy. They're information, raw material. And when you learn how to work with them instead of against them, you build something unbreakable. Let's talk about how. You can't build anything. Not a house, not a life, not emotional concrete, without a solid foundation. And the foundation of emotional stability is self-awareness. Now, I know that sounds like therapy talk, and maybe it is, but hear me out. Self-awareness isn't sitting around navel-gazing or overthinking every little thing. It's simpler than that. It's knowing what you're feeling, when you're feeling it, and why it's showing up. Because here's the thing, most men have no idea what they're actually feeling in the moment. They just know something's off, something's wrong, and they react, they lash out, they shut down, they drink, they work themselves to death. They do anything to avoid actually sitting with what's going on inside. And that's quicksand. You can't fix what you can't see. You can't stabilize what you don't understand. So the first step, the only first step, is to start paying attention. And I'm not talking about some deep emotional excavation. I'm talking about basic awareness. When you feel your chest tighten, when your jaw clenches, when you suddenly want to snap at someone, pause, just for a second, and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Is it anger, fear, shame, frustration? Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it yet, just name it. Because once you can name it, you've got power over it. As long as it's just this vague storm inside you, it controls you. But the moment you can say, I'm feeling afraid, or I'm feeling disrespected, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, you've taken the first step toward choosing your response instead of just reacting. I'll give you an example. There was a time in my life when I'd blow up over the smallest things. Someone cut me off in traffic? Rage. Someone questioned my decision? Rage. My kid left their shoes in the hallway? You guessed it, rage. And I thought that was me. I thought I was just an angry guy. That was my personality, but it wasn't. The anger was a cover. Underneath it, fear. Fear that I wasn't enough. Fear that I was losing control. Fear that I was failing. But I didn't know that. I couldn't see it, so I just kept exploding and wondering why my life kept falling apart. It wasn't until I started pausing, started asking myself what I was really feeling, that I realized the anger was just the surface. And once I could see the fear underneath, I could actually do something about it. That's self-awareness, and that's where the foundation starts. You don't have to have it all figured out, you just have to start paying attention. That's step one. Once you've got the foundation, once you've started paying attention to what's actually going on inside you, the next step is reinforcement. And reinforcement comes from routine. Now, I know routine sounds boring. It sounds restrictive, maybe even weak, like you're just going through the motions. But here's the truth. Routine is what keeps you solid when everything else is chaos. Think about it. When life goes sideways, when everything feels out of control, what's the one thing you can still control? Your actions, your choices, your daily disciplines. That's your structure. That's what holds you together when the world is trying to tear you apart. I'm talking about the basics, the non-negotiables. You wake up at the same time, you move your body, you eat real food, you get outside, you do the work you said you'd do. You go to bed at a reasonable hour. Sounds simple, right? Almost too simple. But when you're in the middle of a crisis, when your mind is racing and your heart is breaking, those routines are everything. They're the guardrails that keep you from careening off the road.
Because here's what happens when you don't have routine. You wake up and you're already behind. You skip breakfast. You scroll your phone for an hour. You react to every notification, every email, every thought that pops into your head. You're scattered, reactive, out of control. And by the end of the day, you feel like you've been through a war. But you didn't actually build anything. You just survived. That's no way to live. Routine gives you agency. It gives you something to hold on to when everything else is slipping. It reminds you that even when life is a mess, you are still capable. You are still in control of something. And that matters more than you think. I'm not saying you have to become a robot. I'm not saying every day has to be perfectly scheduled down to the minute. That's not the point. The point is, you need anchors. Things you do no matter what. Things that ground you. Things that remind you who you are and what you stand for. For me, it's the morning. I wake up. I move. I think. I plan. That's my routine. And on the days when everything goes to hell, that routine is what keeps me from spiraling. Because when you've got structure, when you've got discipline, you're not at the mercy of your emotions. You're not tossed around by every wave. You're solid. You've got a frame. And that frame holds you together. So ask yourself, what are your anchors? What are the non-negotiables that keep you grounded? Figure that out and build your day around it. That's reinforcement. Here's something most men don't understand. Being solid doesn't mean being open to everything. It doesn't mean letting everyone and everything have access to you. Because if you do that, if you let every person, every problem, every crisis come flooding in, you're not strong. You're just saturated. And saturated concrete? It cracks. It breaks down. It doesn't last. That's where boundaries come in. And I know, boundaries sound soft. They sound like something people talk about in therapy or self-help circles. But trust me, boundaries are one of the most masculine things you can develop. Because a boundary isn't about shutting people out. It's about protecting what matters. It's about deciding what you will and won't accept in your life. It's about knowing your limits and actually enforcing them. Let me give you an example. You've got a friend who only calls when he needs something. He's in crisis. Again. And you drop everything to help him. Again. And he never changes. Again. You tell yourself it's the right thing to do. You tell yourself that's what a good man does. He shows up. But here's the truth. You're not helping him. You're enabling him. And you're draining yourself in the process. That's not strength. That's self-destruction. A boundary would look like this. I care about you, but I can't keep being your emergency contact every time you make the same choices. I'm here if you want to make a real change, but I'm not going to keep rescuing you. That's not cruel, that's protection. Protection for you, and honestly, protection for him too. Because sometimes people don't change until the safety net is gone. And this applies to everything. Your time, your energy, your peace. You don't owe everyone access to you. You don't have to answer every call, respond to every text, fix every problem. You don't have to carry everyone else's weight just because you're strong enough to do it. Because here's what happens when you don't have boundaries. You become resentful, bitter, exhausted, and eventually, you crack. And then you're no good to anyone. Not them, not yourself. Weatherproofing your emotional concrete means knowing what can come in and what needs to stay out. It means protecting your foundation so it doesn't get eroded by people and problems that aren't yours to carry. It's not selfish, it's sustainable. And the men who last, the men who stay solid year after year, they understand this. They know when to help
and when to step back. They know when to give and when to hold. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. So ask yourself, where do you need boundaries? Where are you letting too much in? And then, do the hard thing. Enforce them. All right, we're getting to the hard part now. The part most men don't want to hear. The part that feels like defeat, but is actually freedom. Here it is. There are things in your life you cannot control. And no amount of strength, discipline, or willpower is going to change that. You can't control other people. You can't control the economy. You can't control how your body ages. You can't control whether someone loves you back. You can't control loss. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop trying to force things that won't bend, the stronger you become. Because here's what happens when you fight reality. You exhaust yourself. You waste energy on battles you can't win. And in the process, you neglect the things you can control. I've seen so many men destroy themselves trying to force outcomes, trying to make their marriage work through sheer willpower, trying to make their kids respect them, trying to make their business succeed by working harder and harder and harder. And sometimes, it doesn't matter how hard you try. Sometimes it's out of your hands. And that's not failure. That's just life. The Stoics understood this. They called it the dichotomy of control. There are things within your control and things outside of it. And wisdom is knowing the difference. You can control your effort, your attitude, your response, your character. You cannot control the outcome, the result, the way other people react, the way life unfolds. And when you stop trying to control what you can't, when you stop white-knuckling your way through life, you free up so much energy. Energy you can put toward what actually matters. This is what it means to be load-bearing. You carry what's yours to carry, and you let go of the rest. You do your best, and you release the outcome. You love your kids, and you let them make their own choices. You show up in your relationship, and you accept that you can't make someone love you. You work hard, and you accept that success isn't always guaranteed. That's not giving up. That's not apathy. That's acceptance. And acceptance is one of the strongest things a man can develop. Because once you stop fighting reality, once you stop exhausting yourself trying to control the uncontrollable, you become unshakable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you've made peace with the fact that some things will hurt. And that's okay. You'll handle it. You'll adapt. You'll keep going. That's emotional concrete. That's load-bearing truth. You carry what's yours, and you let the rest fall where it falls. And that's freedom. Let's be real for a second. You're not going to get this perfect. Nobody does. You're going to have days where you lose your temper, where you shut down, where you fall back into old patterns, where the foundation you've been building feels like it's crumbling. And that's okay. Because emotional concrete isn't about being perfect, it's about being maintainable. Real concrete cracks. That's just what happens. Temperature changes, pressure, time, it all causes cracks. But here's the thing, cracks don't mean collapse. Cracks just mean you need maintenance. You patch them, you seal them, you reinforce where it's weak, and you keep going. That's the mindset you need. Not perfection, maintenance. So when you slip up, when you react instead of respond, when you let your emotions take over, you don't beat yourself up. You don't tell yourself you're a failure. You don't throw the whole thing away. You just patch the crack. You acknowledge what happened. You figure out why it happened. You learn from it, and you adjust. Maybe you skipped your routine and everything fell apart. Okay, get back on it. Maybe you didn't enforce a boundary and now you're resentful. Okay, reinforce it. Maybe you tried to control something you couldn't and it wore you out. Okay, let it go. This is the work. Not the work of being perfect, but the work of being consistent. The work of showing up even when you mess up. Because the men who stay solid aren't the ones who never crack. They're the ones who keep repairing. They don't let one bad day become a bad week. They don't let one mistake define them. They don't let the cracks spread. They catch it, they fix it, they move forward. That's resilience. That's real strength. And here's the truth. The more you practice this, the fewer cracks you'll get. The more you maintain your foundation, the more solid it becomes. Not because you're perfect, but because you've learned how to repair. You've learned that falling isn't failure. Staying down is. You've learned that cracks are just feedback, information, a signal that something needs attention. And instead of panicking, instead of collapsing, you just handle it, calmly, methodically, like a man who knows his own strength. Because you do know your strength. You've built it, poured it, reinforced it, weatherproofed it. And when it cracks, you repair it. That's the life, that's the practice, that's what it means to stay solid when life hits hard. Not perfection, maintenance. And that's something you can do, every single day. Let's finish this. So here we are. We've talked about the foundation, the reinforcement, the weatherproofing, the load-bearing truth, the maintenance. And if you've been with me this whole time, if you've been taking this seriously, then you're already building something real, something that can last. But let me leave you with one final thought. Emotional concrete isn't just about surviving the hard times, it's about building a life you can be proud of, a life that's stable, a life that's yours. Because when you've got that foundation, when you're solid, everything else becomes possible. You can love without fear. You can work without desperation. You can face loss without collapsing. You can stand in the middle of chaos and still know who you are. That's the gift. That's what all this work gives you. It's not flashy. It's not exciting. It's not the kind of thing people notice from the outside. But you know. And that's what matters. You know that when life comes at you, and it will, you're not going to shatter. You're going to hold. You're going to bend. You're going to adapt. And you're going to keep moving forward. Because you've built something solid, something real, something that can weather the storms. And let me tell you, that's rare. Most men are out here running on fumes, reacting, scrambling, barely holding it together. But not you. Not anymore. You're doing the work. You're building the foundation. You're becoming the kind of man who can stand firm when everything else is falling apart. And that is what it means to be strong. Not invincible, not unbreakable, just solid. So keep going, keep building, keep reinforcing. And when cracks appear, and they will, just patch them and keep moving. Because this is a lifetime practice, not a one-time fix. And the men who win, the men who last, are the ones who understand that. They show up every day, they do the work, and they never stop building. That's you. That's who you're becoming. All right, I want to hear from you. What part of this hit home? What are you struggling with right now? Drop a comment and let's talk about it. This is a community, and we're all in this together. And if you found value in this, if this gave you something real, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. There's a lot more to build. Stay solid, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one.